Oh. All right. Oh. That's okay. I'll call the April 18th, 2023 Board of Education meeting to order. Please roll call.
Abe Thomas,
Here.
Troy Carr,
Here.
Deb Baker,
Here.
Clay Colomb will be joining the meeting late with notice. Jamie Clapham. Here. Jim Hansen,
Present.
Michael Berkland will be joining the meeting late with notice as well. Laura Jensen is absent with notice. Kevin Bigcrow. And Megan Jew.
All right, tonight we have Pastor Scott Craig for the invocation. Please. Thank you.
Buddy, how are you doing tonight? Are you good? Is that guy so green? How's that? There it is. All right. Hi. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you again for life. We thank you for Rapid City, that we get to call it home. We thank you for all the families, all the kids that we're concerned about and we love and we want to educate well. And we thank you for this board that's going to think and discuss. And we thank you for the input they're going to hear and for all that will take place to lead us to a better environment and atmosphere and situation. And we give you thanks for it. In the name of Jesus, I always pray. Amen.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we have 9 speakers, so I would like someone to motion to extend the time to 36 minutes.
So moved.
All right, and that will give everybody at least 4 minutes to talk. Roll call. Oh, no, we don't have anybody on Zoom, right? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, on to the approval of the agenda. Jim, Deb, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, on to sharing the success. Parent nominated special education teachers.
Hello, board. My favorite part of every meeting. So tonight, we are here to celebrate some parent nominated special education teachers. Each year, the South Dakota Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs asks our parents to nominate special education staff members for the Special Education Staff of the Year Award. This award goes to an individual who positively impacts the life of a student in our special education programs. Parents are asked to nominate a teacher, and then the South Dakota Department of Ed Office of Special Education Programs narrows down the list to their top candidates. Rapid City Area Schools was fortunate to have 2 of our own make the top list. It is great. It is. Davin Burris and Darla McKernan. Davin Burris is a structured academics educator at East Middle School and does an outstanding job of working with her students. Her students are always sad to leave her when they move to high school, as her room has become a second home, but they will always remember how she helped them learn and grow. Darla McKernan is a structured academics educator at Valley View Elementary. They're neighbors. She always has a smile on her face and a welcoming classroom. Her calming demeanor helps students when they are having a tough day, and she enjoys celebrating their day-to-day successes. Both Davin and Darla have been with the district for many years, and we are very grateful for the work they do every day with our students. Dr. Hafer couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted to congratulate both of them as well and thank them for the work they do with students and staff in our buildings. And I want to thank the parents who took the time to reach out and complete this so that you could get the recognition that you deserve. So congratulations, ladies. You are outstanding educators. And the other one thing that didn't make it on the agenda, but is worth celebrating is April is the month of the military child. And today is Tuesday. Friday is Wear Purple Day to support our military students. So I encourage all of our employees and our board and anybody else who's listening to wear purple on Friday to support our military children. Thank you.
That'll be easy. My favorite color is purple. All right, on to persons wishing to address the board. So just going over the guidelines really quickly, issues that affect an individual or particular school should be addressed first at the building. And then speakers should focus on their main points and not be repetitive. Personal matters or complaints that directly or indirectly identify an employee shall not be discussed. And to maintain a civil dialogue, threats and intimidation are not allowed. First speaker, and you have 4 minutes, is Heather Fields.
Good evening, all. I would like to advise the student reps and any minor in the audience that you might want to leave before my comments continue or throw in your earbuds or whatever. Mrs. Swigert and board, my name is Heather Fields, and I am the chair of the Pennington County chapter of Moms for Liberty. I have 2 children in the RCAS school system. Last week, you all heard a presentation from Holly Strand on internet crimes against children. I hope you were as shocked as I was the first time I heard Holly speak at the horrific sextortion to which our children are exposed. I hope you have been thinking about the factors that go into this large problem, which are many. One major factor is the early exposure of sexual topics to our children, which overcomes their natural repugnance and makes them vulnerable to grooming and abuse. Unfortunately, this board is taking part in that exposure. By now, you know the types of books that are in our school libraries. You failed at your last regular meeting to pass a policy amendment that would have merely removed a book from the shelves while a decision was being made on its safety. That decision should have been a no-brainer, but those of you who did not vote yes neglected to even take this basic step to protect our children. For the last 5 months, my colleagues and I have been working diligently to research the Destiny Follett system to discover what books are listed in our libraries. We have found 100 books and counting that are objectionable. There are blatantly racist books, many actually written by Ibram X. Kendi or Robin DiAngelo, in express disregard of Governor Noem's anti-critical race theory executive order. There are books which perpetuate the lie that girls can become boys and vice versa, absolutely ignoring the growing international consensus that so-called gender-affirming care has not been proven to be either safe or effective in improving mental health in the long term. There is a book called Drama by Raina Telgemeier, which encourages children to explore their sexuality and keep secrets from their parents. It is located in 7 of our elementary schools. But mostly there are books of sexual explicitness that would match any erotica you could find on the internet. Largely located in our high schools, but also some even in our middle schools, are books that describe in detail the breasts, penises, testicles, and vaginas of its characters. They describe in detail all the sexual acts you could imagine and the feelings that accompany those acts. They describe in detail violent sex, violent rape, sex slavery, and pedophilia, with one book called Boy Toy actually telling the story of a teenage boy and his sexual exploitation by a female teacher. I wanted to get up here tonight and read from one of them, but I couldn't even pick one. There are so many. Maybe next time. Many parents spoke at the last meeting and made the statement that their child was a voracious reader. In fact, it was curious how many of them used the same wording. I'm not sure what point they were trying to make. My children also devour books, and it's hard for me to keep up with them and ensure that they're reading age-appropriate material. It would sure be nice if I could say, hey, if that book came out of the school library, go for it, it's safe. But tragically, that's not the case. But that's beside the point. It is not the parents' job to come forward and ask this board to keep erotica, racism, and gender ideology out of schools any more than we should have to ask you not to stock the vending machines with whiskey. It is the job of teachers, librarians, and school board members to keep our children safe while they are in your care. In fact, the U.S. Department of Justice website states federal law strictly prohibits the distribution of obscene matter to minors. Offenders convicted of obscenity crimes involving minors face harsher penalties than if the crimes involved only adults. By allowing this filth to remain in our schools, you are not only failing basic human decency, but you may even be breaking the law. Please, I beg you all to stop playing political games and partner with us to remove this harmful material from our students' reach immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jan Mankelson.
Good evening, board members. I want to make a comment related to the social studies standards that were approved yesterday. $25,000 was paid to Professor Morrissey from Hillsdale College to facilitate the public hearings. He did not do so. He should pay that money back. Also, it appears that plans were underway for teacher workshops for the standards were planned even before the vote was taken. Apparently, it was already known that they would be passed. So why have the expense of the fourth hearing? It appears that this is not honoring the intent of the law. I and my husband are on a fixed income. I do not appreciate the above waste of my tax money. I urge you all to speak out against this wasteful spending as RCAS struggles with its finances. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Melanie Watt.
Hello, in case you don't remember me, I am the mother who talked about her growing frustration with the lack of respect for me and my autistic high school son. I am also a former employee and my last day was today. So now I am free to speak my mind without retaliation. I said last time my student was going to high school for 4 hours and 40 minutes a day for the last 2 years of his high school career. This has since been corrected thanks to the help of my disability rights advocate, but there is still a number of high school students who are not getting a full 7 hours of a day of education. The last time I was here was July 12th. And it's weird that that YouTube video is nowhere to be found on the RCAS channel, because in the first 3 hours, there were more views than any other videos in the last 9 months. Why is that being silenced? I am also a nurse who worked as a health assistant in this district. As an employee, I was targeted by special education administration while advocating for my son. The head of special ed and the assistant principal conspired together to set me up to get me fired. And instead of apologizing to me,
So, ma'am,
the head of department,
that's indirectly naming somebody and you can't do that.
I haven't said any names.
It's indirectly naming if you're talking about positions, yes. So you can't name that, sorry.
Okay. Well, I forwarded you all the emails for your reading enjoyment. Please understand that my son has had several outstanding teachers, including this year. She is wonderful. But this speech isn't about the teachers. It's about administration. Okay? I have been going to IEP meetings for 13 years and had no problems until my son went to Stevens High School. The level of unprofessional and inappropriateness is overwhelming. For instance, fat shaming. That young man back there was fat shamed. So I had requested for my son to receive an extra year in middle school setting, as is his right. But where he can be with his teacher, because she was well-versed in his speech device and ASL, and knew how to motivate him in life skills. But the program specialist, which that program isn't a thing anymore this year, just so you know, said no, that he would be better suited for high school because of his size. My son's education is meant to his needs, not his size. Let me repeat that. My son's education is meant to his needs, not his size. This is how administration speaks to parents. And I would appreciate if you can control and monitor your special education admin staff, so perhaps you are no longer in multiple violations of the law. Just a thought.
Thank you. Rocky Atkinson.
Hello again. My name is Rocky Akison. And for anyone who does not know me, I am a former employee of this district. I have worked as a paraprofessional in a variety of settings. I've worked as a substitute teacher at all levels, and I was a middle school special education case manager. I am thrilled to see special educators honored here tonight. It's not something that happens a lot. Bravo. I'm here tonight, however, to give an opportunity to those who were seen, heard, and recorded prior to the call of order of the board meeting on April 4th to publicly apologize for their insults to the people of this community, specifically those without access to technology. Make no mistake that you were seen and heard by multiple people. I don't know if you were aware that we could see and hear you, but we could. Not only is it deplorable for you to mock your constituents, but to know that you are in a position of public service and you brazenly and openly mock the people of this community, the people that are concerned about public education. It truly is a slap in the face. How dare you? I fully expect a public apology from those involved prior to the next board meeting. The minutes for that meeting also should be not accepted as is, because the response to public comment is severely lacking. It does not cover a reasonable amount of the comments made by board members in response to open forum. To the comment made by a board member about parents not being involved enough to show up, firstly, I can name at least 10 people right now who could not get onto the April 4th Zoom meeting because after the recording started, no one else was admitted. Secondly, there's a large portion of our community without access to technology or Wi-Fi service. Not only that, but let us consider those people who are not literate enough on technology to access a Zoom meeting without assistance. Pretty hard to do in the middle of a blizzard. Thirdly, as I have mentioned before, 5:30 p.m. is a really inconvenient time for most parents. Not always going to have people here at that time. I also want to comment on the change to your voting policy that is very clearly an attempt to push forward agenda items that have not been fully vetted by members of this board. When we had an abstained vote from the last vote about challenging library literacy materials, you very clearly decided that you were not going to let that happen again. Seems like a pretty clear misuse of the power. Again, How dare you? I encourage you to remove the agenda item 10A. The rewrites are clearly not in the best interest of students or the majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Siobhan Ward.
All right, so I'm Siobhan Ward. So the main reason I'm here tonight is because I'm one of those parents without Wi-Fi. And I'm just wondering what's so funny about not hearing my voice. We might not physically be here, but we're aware of what's happening. I was made aware that a board member made a comment at the April 4th meeting that parents of this community are uninvolved and unsupportive of public education. This is simply untrue. I am very disappointed that's how you feel as public servants to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Gross.
Good evening, Board. My name is Sarah Gross, and I am a parent of 2 elementary children, and I get to be a local teacher. I last attended the board meeting on March 21st. At that meeting, I was flustered when I got up here. I had to pause, I had to breathe. Later, I realized why. When the speaker before me spoke and read inappropriate content, I, like all of you, was a captive audience. There was no warning and no way I could turn it off. And I think that is the difference between what we heard and a library book. If I'm uncomfortable with a library book, I can close it. I don't have to continue to listen. And then the fact that there were students and former students of mine makes it even more personal, I guess. Next, I wanted to thank you so much for the internet safety presentation. I got to watch it online and it was amazing. I'd heard about Holly Strand's presentation in the past, and something that stands out to me was the natural filters that used to exist when we had home phones. You know, like my mom had to answer the phone and screen the call and talk to whoever called. Or, you know, I loved how she talked about taking 47 pictures up your nose. You never could have done that before. And so if you haven't watched it, I encourage everyone to. The sound doesn't work right away, but it does come on. And I hope you get a chance. I hope that she can make some more rounds around our schools. I think another thing that really struck me was that she spelt a potentially vulgar word, even when the audience was primarily adult. I think it's very professional. And so I know that as disagreeable as a book might be, Holly Strand really made it stand out to me that it would never harass me when I put it down, when I decided to close it, because it was a choice that I made and I might regret. I could close it and put it away, unlike a phone. And so I think we as a community need to continue to focus on issues facing our schools, like how to help students deal with that technology because it's not going away, and how to manage cell phone policy at each of our buildings and throughout the district. I hope we can focus on staff retention, and I know that you're working through negotiations, and I know that that's an enormous amount of your time, and I appreciate all of that time that you're gifting. And then, of course, the buildings. I always like to talk about the condition of our buildings because that's a real issue in my daily life. And then, you know, unfortunately, we're going to have to implement those social standards, and that will be a challenge. And so those are some things that I really hope that we can center our conversation on. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Lawrence Thompson.
I'm going to adjust this microphone. Hopefully it'll cut down a little bit of the echo. So I won't be quite so loud. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools and a grandmother of a public education student. I was in Pierre yesterday for the social studies, the final hearings, and I did testify, and I was pleased with the result, as you know. I think if you will listen to the testimony of the proponents, particularly what Dr. Ben Jones presented and what Dr. Graves presented, And there were many other good testimonies. I think you will be reassured that these are not something that were just plucked out of the air, have never been used before and are impossible. They're not anything to be afraid of. I think if you give them a real chance, I think you're going to have 2 years of implementation. I think they're going to have a lot of support for the teachers. There's going to be a lot of teacher to teacher support. And I believe this is going to put everybody at ease. And I believe, unlike the 2 superintendents that testified against it or voted against it, the vote was 2-5. And the 2 superintendents were the ones who voted against it, the standards. Unlike them, I think it will teach kids to love history and to be excited about history. And so one of them seemed to think it was going to sour kids on history. I really doubt that. The largest group there was the Native American representation. And I believe that they've been misled by the unions and by the Democratic Party, that these standards do not include the Oshidi Wakoshi or whatever it is. I can never remember. Anyway, that they do not include that. Well, they do. That is a state law. It was included by the legislature. So that is in both the previous proposed standards and these current approved standards. So there's definitely lots of Native American instruction, and all of those points are covered that were required by the legislature. So that's all in there. So really, I believe the people are being misled that they're being shortchanged by these standards, which they're not. So another thing is that they are, Dr. Graves talked about they're just have proposals out to, or not proposals, but requests out to 95 different publishers that will be submitting books. This will be for the supplementary reading, and that groups of teachers at grade levels will be going over those lists and selecting the books that'll be used for the supplementary reading. And the idea is that, as you know, you can teach reading and social studies. It works very well. So a lot of good reading is going to come out of this social studies curriculum. So I'm excited about it. I think several states have already been using this. More states are adopting it, and not item for item. The idea that this was imposed on us is a total lie. It was facilitated, but then we always get facilitated. It was much less facilitated than Common Core was facilitated, and I don't hear anybody objecting to when Common Core came in, very few. So thank you.
That's time. Thank you. Heather Baxter.
Good evening, board. My name is Heather Baxter, and I do agree that a lot of times we as adults, we have a lot of willpower, and a lot of times our 6th graders don't have the same willpower as adults do. The book that has been read in here was told to us that it was not available for checkout. People were offended by how it's read, but 6th graders don't always think, oh, maybe I shouldn't read another page. Kind of like with alcohol, some adults may be able to stop at 1 and say, that's good. Other adults go to 6 or 8 and say, that's almost good. So willpower is different a lot of times for children, and they don't always say, maybe a 2nd page of this pornographic book is no longer good. Codified law, South Dakota 22-24-27. I'm sure you guys are very aware of this. But number 4, harmful to minors includes in its meaning the quality of any material or any performance or any description or representation in whatever form of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochist abuse. It goes on to talk about predominantly appealing to the prurient, shameful, or morbid interest of minors. Is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material for minors, as well as is without serious literacy, artistic, political, or scientific value. Number 6, material, anything tangible, which is harmful to minors, whether derived through the medium of reading, observation, or sound. Number 7, matter or material, any book, magazine, newspaper, or other printed or written material, or any picture, drawing, photograph, motion picture, or other pictorial representation, or any statute or other figure or recording, transcription. It goes on and on and on. Minor, any person less than 18 years of age. Obscene material, the dominant theme of which taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest, which is patently offensive because it affronts contemporary community standards relating to this description or representation of any type of abuse or sexual conduct. Lacks serious literacy, artistic, political, or scientific value. It goes on, talks about prosecution under 22-24-27. As well as when you go under 22-24A-3, possessing, manufacturing, or distributing child porn, felony. Holly Strand is a great one to also talk to about the book Push. She had a lot to say in regards to it. I would highly recommend you contact her in regards to it and her disagreeing with it being available in the schools. I don't know how RCAS is able to be above codified law or federal code 18 USC or federal code 2252 under the 18 or the 2251 or the 2252A or the 1466A. So I'm not sure where the discrepancy is, how RCAS can go against South Dakota and federal codified laws, but I just would like to set that out there that the books that are available at all 3 school levels are very pornographic in nature. In 150 of the books that I've found so far, I'm still building that list each day. So I would ask for a reevaluation, and I feel that the process to remove them is a minimum of 40 days. If you look at all the steps so far, I've broken it down into 14 categories, and that's if you get resolution at the end, as well as approximately, it's probably close to 3.5-4 months. And a lot of people do have full-time jobs, and a lot of times people do have children to take care of, and they don't necessarily have that much time to put into going to meetings. Thank
That's
you.
fine, thank you. And last speaker, Robert Wardman.
Madam President and Board, at a meeting a few weeks back, I listened to the finance report, which gave possible scenarios and projections that could impact the 23-24 school year. Included in that report was an estimation of local tax contributions called revenue that make up roughly half the RCAS budget. The report stated that revenue was up due to increased property valuations, to which a board member commented, "So we're doing a good job." This led me to consider how to assess the performance of a school board or school system through the lens of a budget. 1, school boards and systems have little or no effective control over state and local funding, so budget revenue is not a good indicator. 2, school boards and systems have little or no effective control over fixed expenses. Inflation is out of all of our control, unfortunately. The third leg of the budget matrix is enrollment. This is the only contributing factor that can be directly impacted by the actions and policies of a board and system. Therefore, it's the best gauge as to how good of a job a board is doing and what district parents think of the education that their children can get within that district. The 2020 to 2022 Rapid City population has increased by 7.58%, according to the information I was able to gather. RCAS enrollment has remained flat during this period of population growth, increasing by roughly 0.25%, according to the numbers I could get. RCCSS, which is the Catholic school system, has increased 6.19% over that same period of time. And Rapid City Christian has seen 31.86% growth during that same period of time. With increasing population, near matching growth in the Catholic school system, and 31.86% growth at RCC, it's easy to see that there's something happening in the RCAS district. We must put ideals and personal pride aside and ask ourselves, why the private school growth is strongly outpacing the district if we want to fix our enrollment stagnation issues. I have my own opinions, but I didn't come to share opinions. I came to share the facts and hopefully make all of you consider how you can better serve the district and address the enrollment issues. On another note, I do like the idea of the board looking for additional funding from outside the local revenue stream. I think that's a positive, proactive step in the right direction. In closing, I'd like to paraphrase some words from Haven. We all have vast God-given rights and liberties ensuring the pursuit of happiness. But what makes living with each other bearable and civilization possible is the willingness of all parties to limit that exercise of those rights from time to time. In other words, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. And if we'd all treat each other as working for a common goal, which is the education of our children best possible, I think we'd all be better suited for our positions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to board responses to the open forum topics.
Okay, no.
Nicole.
Okay.
Mrs. Swagger.
Thank you, President Thomas. I did want to speak to the open forum topic that said I lied. I spoke the truth as I knew it to be that night, so I apologize. I was informed that the library books were a book set that was in the back of the library. I was not told that one was available for AP students to check out. So I do apologize for that. It is almost impossible for me to predict every statement that will be made that may need a response. I do the best I can, but I am perfectly willing to to admit when I was wrong, and I was wrong there. So I do apologize.
Mrs. Clapham.
Yes. Completely factual, one, the topic of books and that continually comes up. I would just really encourage, the board's two major jobs are policy and to hire a superintendent. And we have a policy. And I have responded to many, many emails and many parents, and people are choosing not to utilize that policy. And we institute policies for a reason. And so I would just really encourage people to use the policy that does exist. It also in the policy, parents may choose to have any access to any book for their child limited. So if someone has a list of 100 or 150 or however many books that they choose for their child to not have access to, that can be sent to the library and addressed immediately. So that already exists in policy. And as far as that on the voting policy, I would like to clarify. I could see how it could appear to be a quote manipulation. However, our policy was in contradiction with state law policy. So those two need to be congruent. It doesn't make sense, because then you get into, well, our policy stands as law, but that also stands as law. So it actually, the change to the policy is actually to make those two consistent, to be clear. And the fact that it didn't address an abstention. So I wanted to clarify that. As far as the social studies standards, I do want to say to our educators, to 90% of the community, when you look at the comments, and it was 1,130 to 120. I just want to say, I'm sorry you were not heard. I know it's frustrating to not be heard, particularly when it is resounding and clear. So I'm sorry for that. I do agree that fiscal responsibility is important, and to address where money has been spent on standards, any standards is important, and that should probably be addressed and looked into. And that as an individual, and I think as a board, we are committed to supporting our staff, our students in every way possible. We have what we have, but we're going to support everybody in the best way we can in these 2 years of transition. And I would just hope that you take that genuinely and to be what we will do.
Bishop Carr.
My comment is only to say, I don't know if the Moms for Liberty representative is still here. Are you still here? Okay. What I'd like to do is to meet with you or a group and explain my decision and kind of understand more what your concern is, because one of the difficult things being in this seat is I also have to represent people that disagree with your position. And so I have to justify how to respect both decisions. And so I'd like to talk to you and explain to you my position and specifically my decision on my vote the other night. So.
All right. We are on to student representative reports. Megan Jew from Stevens High School, you're up first.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Megan Jew and I'm Stevens High School's student representative. So we recently received our scores back from the pre-ACT and ACT testing, and we've seen major improvements for both tests. 9th and 10th graders at Stevens took the PACT once in the fall and then once again in the spring, and they have increased their scores, their average scores in all areas, including math, science, STEM, English, and reading. And then the juniors took the ACT a couple weeks ago, and their average composite score is 21.33, which is a big achievement for a class of 373 students. And then their average composite score is actually a whole point higher than last year's ACT class average. This past weekend was the Stevens and Central Prom, which was a fun time for all students who attended, and Stevens post prom also had great attendance with some amazing prizes that were given away at the end of the night. And then last night, many Stevens students attended the Evening of Excellence, which is an event organized by the Rapid City Public School Foundation. And students got to be recognized for their academic achievement, as well as honor a teacher who has impacted them. It was a great event for the students, their families, and teachers. And then this Wednesday at Stevens, we will have the last grad time for seniors, but make sure to attend because counselors will be covering important information about honors convocation, final transcripts, graduation pictures, and more important items for seniors to know. And then Stevens is hosting another blood drive next Friday on April 28th from 7:45 to 1:30 in the lobby of the gym. So please sign up to go donate blood.
Thank you. All right, Kevin Big Crow from Rapid City High School, go ahead.
Hello, board and everyone here tonight. I'd just like to say it's very nice to be back after missing last week during spring break. I'll get started right away. Last night, the Rapid City Public School Foundation held their annual Evening of Excellence. We'd like to thank the board of directors for including learners from Rapid City High School in virtual high school. This was the first time our learners and staff were recognized as at the annual event. It truly means a lot to be able to celebrate alongside the district. And congratulations to all those recognized last night. And a special shout out to our learners, Brooklyn Nilsson, Trig LaPlante, Kaylee Wood, Blazy Lightenberg, and Holly Jacobs. And over the next 2 days, our juniors will be taking the state SBAC testing. And as a building, we have been working hard each quarter to improve our SBAC scores. In our advisory classes, we have been completing lessons designed to fill in the gaps where our scores are low. We also have been utilizing the interim SBAC test to prepare. As I already took my junior test last year, I have successfully sidestepped having to endure 2 days of testing. Nonetheless, I wish all our test takers the best of luck, and those who are not testing will continue a regular schedule of classes this week. Continuing on this weekend, you're all aware that prom was held. Many of our Rapid City High School juniors and seniors enjoyed a night of dancing. Thank you to the planning committee. Also, a quick reminder about the Feeding South Dakota Food Pantry at Rapid City High School. On the third Tuesday of each month, which is this Thursday, the 20th, the food pantry at Rapid City High School is opened after school to any family with students in our district. Thank you to the district community relations manager for getting the word out district-wide about this opportunity. Finally, this week is the second annual RCAS Recycle Wars. All 3 high schools are competing to see who can collect the most recycled items. I feel it is very important that the official record of tonight's meeting reflect who collected the most on day 1 of this competition this year, which is Rapid City. I also feel it is very important that the public know that Rapid City High School won the entire competition last year. Best of luck to our other two high schools, but we all know who's going to win. Thank you to the Student Voice Forum for sponsoring this competition. In closing, I'd like to remind you of our school-wide expectations at Rapid City High School. Be respectful, present, and courageous. Respectfully submitted, Kevin Bickrow.
Thank you. Great reports. All right, on to conflict of interest. None have been turned in. So on to number 10. I need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, on to the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Deb, Jim and Deb. All right, does anybody want anything pulled? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Moving on to items for board information. Let's see, we've got an MOU up first, Friends of the Children, Dr. Big Eagle.
Thank you, President Thomas. Dr. Big Eagle is here to share with us some information about Friends of the Children. I welcome her here. I'm thrilled that she's here to share some information about this program that she is the director of for the state of South Dakota.
Pretty close, Nicole.
Okay.
Thank you.
I tried.
So, Petruashte, good day, everyone. I greet you all with a heartfelt handshake. Thank you, especially for the students. I love hearing all the things you're doing, and honestly, that's why we're here. The school board is here because of all of you, and we're here because of you. And so, Dr. Valeria Big Eagle here. I'm a Hunktawan Dakota Nakota. You might know me in different various roles that I play. Title VI Indian Education Advocate and also Indigenous Education Task Force. But today, I come to you with a different hat. So I am the executive director of Friends of the Children, Chesapa, and it's a nonprofit. We opened our doors in August of 2022, and it's a professional mentoring program. And I'll go ahead, Bobby, you can go to the next slide. And so this program, it's actually over 30 years old. Friends of the Children started in Portland, Oregon, and we are the first culturally specific site. There's actually 32 sites or chapters across the nation, and ours is the first culturally specific. We have our Rapid City site where we're serving students here, but also we have a site on the Oglala Lakota Nation, and it is an evidence-based program. We start working with youth ages 4 to 6. They are paired with a professional mentor or what we call relative. We actually have a relative here tonight that will be working with our youth. And they work with that youth 4 hours a week. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. 12 plus years, no matter what. And that's why the way the program actually works. It has a huge success rate in actually meeting the academic needs and helping Indigenous and all students graduate high school or attain their GED. It also helps our youth avoid getting those referrals into the juvenile justice system. And I know there was recently a study session just the last month, and you were talking about discipline data. And so this actually has a successful rate in actually mitigating that and providing that mentorship with our youth. And so I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And so this program, if you remember me talking as an advocate for, serving on the Indigenous Education Task Force, and I know Bishop Carr, you just recently came to one of our parent advisory committee meetings. And one of the things that we found was from freshman to senior year, we know we lose 75% of our Indigenous students due to various reasons. And so what we know is that this prevention program, starting working with youth ages 4 to 6, grounded in our Lakota lifeways, not only are we actually helping them in the classroom, but that tutoring and all those things take place. We also go along with the state standards. We want to read by 3rd grade, all the beautiful things because they're students first. But what we do know for Indigenous students in my research, even for my doctoral studies, is the more that we incorporate and strengthen their identity as Native students, it that'll help them matriculate through the school system. And so we have professional, salaried, full-time mentors. It's not a part-time position. It's not like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, where it's a volunteer program. They actually work with the youth full-time. And so it's an 8-to-1 ratio. We have a female mentor, a relative, and a male relative that actually work 4 hours, so that 2 hours is in the school. And then if you see up there, 2 hours is actually in the community. And we do have a safe space that we also can host our youth and the families. And so not only are we working with the youth, but we provide wraparound services for the families. We have a program director that works with the family as well. And so we know a lot of our families' needs, whether that be housing, whether that be financial literacy, whether that be, home ownership, they'll be able to work with our program director to address that. So not only are we serving the youth, but we're serving the family. And again, once they're in our program, essentially their siblings, their family are part of our program 12+ years, no matter what. And so helping them graduate high school or attain their GED. And then we also help with their transition, whether they want to go to the military, whether they want to go to career right after high school, or whether they want to go into WT, maybe they want to be a mechanic, or whether they want to go to college. And so we'll help them with that transition as well. And one of the main things I think why we're coming to you, asking for that MOU support is that this is not place-based. And so we are student-based. We follow the student where they go. So right now, our child selection partners that we actually select the youth from are Rural America Initiatives and Oceti Sakowin Community Academy. And once they actually graduate those schools or transition, they will eventually come into kindergarten at any of the schools, at Rapid City area schools. And so we follow them, whether they go to General Beetle, whether they go to Knollwood, or maybe they go to Valley View. We follow them. And so really working with the children, and it can look like a paraprofessional. We work with the teachers and the principals on setting that up, and also the families on what that looks like, what that support looks like, and gain that guidance from them. So go ahead and go on to the next. One of the things that we did too, and I just wanted to share this because it's a huge achievement for us. We do have a full resolution of support from the Oglala Sioux tribe to actually do this work. And so if you remember, the majority of Indigenous students that are in the school district are Oglala Lakota. And with our site also on the reservation, knowing that some of our relatives, because we know this happens, we have transient relatives that go back and forth, whether that they lose housing in Rapid City, they go back to the reservation. And so they can actually still stay in the program, even if they come back to Rapid City again. We see that all the time. And so that's why we were very purposeful about having both locations, and we work very closely with the tribe as well. Go ahead, Bobby. And like I said, these are just some of our growing list of selection and program partners. We do partner with Owaye Luta Kolakichie. I know Great Plains Tribal Leaders Health Board, Youth and Family Services is also a child selection partner. Oceti Sakowin Community Academy. And again, we have programs on the reservation that we work with just to ensure that if we have relatives that are transient and children that are transient, we can support them. Go ahead and go to the next one. And so those are those statistics. I just have them right here, and mending the sacred hoop and helping address that achievement gap that we see for our Indigenous students here in the school district. This is one of the ways. And so 83% of youth that are part of our program, they graduate high school or attain their GED. And this is proven. 93% actually avoid the juvenile justice system. And as you know, and some of the work that we found is that middle school Indigenous students, Indigenous boys, they're actually the highest student group in our school district that are referred to law enforcement. And so we know that with patience and time, these kindergartners, they're going to follow that youth no matter what, no matter where they go to school. And so we will have a huge impact on their lives. 98% also avoid early parenting. And so that's another thing that we also look for. 92% also enroll in college, they serve our country or enter the workforce. And so it's evidence-based. We have quite a few research data points I could actually give to you if you need. And at this point, you could go to the last slide, and it's just thanking you for your time. And I'm able to take questions at this time.
Any questions from board members? I can't see my hands. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. Looks like a great program. Just wanted to say that. And my one question is, when are you gonna come to Rosebud?
I know we've been, asked that, when are we gonna go to all the other reservations? And so we know once we start serving youth and we prove that this is working, that we're making an impact in the children's lives. It'll take a few years. And Tumi's here too. She said, take some patience. We're going to see an impact. And this is how we address the achievement gap. This is how we address that graduation rate and that attrition rate. And so we're excited, and we're excited to expand into Indian country.
Thank you for that. I had to throw a little joke out.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, I'm really impressed with the statistics that you're showing, and look forward to seeing it in action. So thank you again for bringing this to us.
Oh, thank you.
Mrs. Clapham.
I was just gonna say the same. I think sometimes we're asked, what are we gonna do about this? And one of the things before I ever came on the board was discussion about our achievement gaps. And I think that is a huge issue that I love seeing community, and I love seeing just your intentionality and your energy to do that. And I'm super appreciative of that. Obviously, I think one of the things that's important as a board, as a leader, as an elected official is we don't know everything, and utilizing the resources of our community and the wisdom of our community. And I'm really appreciative of that. And I'm really excited about this.
Oh, Pilama, thank you.
I don't see any other questions.
Well, thank you.
Yes. That's a little, out of order. You can
could
certainly
catch
talk
me
to her
in the
afterwards.
hall. Yeah, you can catch me outside.
President Thomas.
Yes, go ahead.
This MOU, some other directors have looked at it. We're gonna make a couple of changes. We're gonna work with Dr. Biggigle, and the final copy will be on the agenda for approval at the next meeting on May 2nd.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Of course, no,
Thank you, I appreciate it. Mrs. Swire.
President Thomas, I am really excited to bring forward the math adoption group. Pretty quickly after I started, this team brought everyone together and started working through the process. I've been studying assessment and curriculum adoption, and I can tell you that from everything I'm reading and seeing, we are light years ahead of other districts with the help of Tara and Amanda and all of the teachers and Valerie and all of the teachers that have worked this process through. So much work has gone into it. So I'm going to turn it over to Valerie and her team, and they're going to walk you through where we're at now.
All right.
I was just looking for a little attention. Good evening, board president and members of the board. Tonight, we're here to talk to you about a 30,000-foot view of the adoption process that we utilize in the department that I oversee. Tonight, we're capturing a high-level picture of the process that we utilized to capture the recommendations made by our elementary teachers that participated in the pilot.
You pull this just a little bit closer.
You've heard in
Thank you.
depth, especially instructional council members, about the process that we use. I think it's just important to note that this is completely teacher recommendation guided under the direction of TLI. None of the Rapid City staff members outside of the teaching ranks vote or put anything forth in this process. So after getting that on the table, I would like to welcome Tara and Amanda, but also Alyssa, Meredith, and Erin who were committee members to present tonight. I'm very excited to have them here.
And Alyssa was actually unable to join us, but
Yes.
we left her
Thank
there
you.
because she was planning on being here.
So, and also just to put out there that this presentation is informational in nature. It's not asking you to approve the purchase. We will bring the purchase item forward at the next board meeting. So this is just an overview and I have the first couple slides, so I'll get started. Over 3 years ago, district leaders, principals, and directors rolled up their sleeves and built the instructional framework. This document actually came partially to life 4 years ago. So we've had this framework a lot. We are continuing to work on implementing the framework and making our decisions through the lens of the framework if it relates to instruction. And so I just think it's important to note for the board that right behind you as well is our instructional framework. And we make sure that our work aligns with that. If it's related to student learning, student assessment, it runs through the framework. And so that helped outline our decisions. And of course, the framework was devised by a group of principals, directors, teachers. It was a big committee that put that together and we're happy to connect the work so it doesn't seem so disjointed. What else? So from designing lessons and aligning to the standards to responsive instruction, balanced assessment, and a positive learning environment, these are the lenses that guide our work. I think on the next slide, would like to point out that this is our purpose statement. So all decisions were, funneled through this purpose statement, and that is to identify a program that meets the standards, provides meaningful learning opportunities for all students of all types, and employs a balance of instructional strategies as well as offering professional learning and support for all teachers of math. And I'm just going to put it out there, spoiler alert before they go. We had great products. You know that we overviewed 12 or 11 products. We weeded it down to 8, then 7, then, et cetera. We ended up with 2 tied products to pilot. We piloted both. And our first vote was a dead tie. And this is becoming familiar. And I can only say that's the case because of the diligence of the committee and my staff that run the committee. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. We had already, whittled it down to the best of the best. And then they tied. And then you have to go to, well, what's the tiebreaker? So you'll see that in the presentation and we'll accept questions at the end. Go ahead, you guys.
Okay. Can you click me to the next slide? Thank you. So this is an overview of the scope of work for the committee. You can see we started about a year ago in the summer. The teachers came together to start that work. They met a couple of times over the summer. We would like to just recognize the amount of work that our teacher committee put in because it is a heavy lift, weeding those 11 resources down to even just to get the 2 to pilot. And then the differences in the planning and the preparation and just being willing to take that on for the teachers in their building and in this district is no small feat. So we thank all of them that came tonight and we know that it was a lot of work and it is very much appreciated. Going ahead. This is a slide detailing the committee membership. We had 26 voting members on the committee. All 15 elementary buildings were represented. We tried the very best we could to get a primary representative and an upper elementary representative from every building. We did not accomplish that, but we did have at least 1 teacher from every building. There were 3 administrators that served a kind of advisory role on that committee. And then as we needed, we pulled in other specialists from other areas for input and feedback as well.
I would just add those 3 administrators were elementary principals.
Yes,
as well
sorry.
as the administrators that just participated. Thanks.
Thank you. As Valerie mentioned, we started this with 11 resources. So there was a lot to look at and to weed through. And as she mentioned, we kind of narrowed the field a bit by bit by bit until we finally had 2 left to pilot, which were McGraw-Hill Reveal Math and Origo Stepping Stones 2.0. So every teacher on the committee piloted for 4 weeks, both resources. So the first pilot ran January and then the second pilot ran February to March, and everybody piloted both. So they had equal opportunities to communicate and compare those 2 resources. So feedback was collected on both resources in the form of surveys from students, the students that participated in the pilot classrooms. The pilot teachers gave us their feedback and communicated that with each other as well. All K-5 elementary staff were given the opportunity on a professional development day or after school or during a staff meeting to review the materials and give their feedback as well. The committee members had done a short overview of each of the two that were sent to that were piloted for their staff. And then parent and community surveys were accepted through the website. We had an elementary math off of the RCAS homepage. So a couple of themes from those surveys for McGraw-Hill reveal the students and teachers that used these lessons really enjoyed the be curious portion of the lessons. They had a lot of great math conversations and they felt like they, as a teacher, spent less time talking to the students and the students were able to engage in those conversations a little bit more. There were great strategies and strong questionings. The differentiation they felt was strong there, and they felt like it was a little bit more teacher-led at kindergarten and first grade and a little less scripted. For Origo Stepping Stones 2.0, as far as students, they saw strong engagement and encouraged manipulative use to develop the concepts. One of the resources within the Stepping Stones teacher platform is a teacher video that shows a demonstration for each module of an actual teacher teaching the lesson, and that was appreciated as part of that professional development portion. Guided lessons supported teachers in questioning and sequence, and it was a more scripted resource. And then they felt it was approachable for parents to be able to support at home through the workbooks a little bit more.
Before I advance, I have to weigh in and say a student also weighed in on the quality of the perforated papers in their survey. So we did take the feedback. We actually read all the feedback and that one cracks me up.
You're bringing forward an open mic.
Oh, I do. You know me. If I'm thinking it, I'm gonna say it.
Throughout our process, we used two different tools as we evaluated the different options that we had. Our first tool that we used, tool one, we used alignment and accuracy. And through that tool, we made sure that it was aligned with both state standards and with the mathematical teaching practices. We also looked at the usability in tool one for both teachers and students throughout that. And then we also looked at tool two, and in tool two, we looked at integration, which is focused on interdisciplinary connections, such as literacy and how speaking skills and concepts can be integrated throughout the math process. We looked at teaching technology criteria, primarily detailed through the use of the tools, which were embedded through the online platform for students to use. As a teacher, I look at how if students are at home learning, the flexibility at home, if they were to be using that at home, was something we looked at through that. Then we also looked at the support piece of it. And that was for both differentiation and professional learning resources for teachers to utilize in the classroom. We also, those resources were available to provide also for parents and guardians at home. Then lastly, through tool two, we looked at assessment and how assessment could be used in various options, both online and paper pencil, as teachers have a variety of way and each teacher likes to use both options. So we looked at those processes throughout the tools as well.
All right, so when we came together on March 27th, before we voted, we did decide as a committee that we needed to change some of our scores on both tools, just based on survey results and our experiences as we piloted both materials. And so for tool one, as you can see, both resources scored strong, and we actually did tie with tool one. Both of them ended up scoring an 11.5. And as a committee, we felt that that actually spoke to how strong our resources were and that we had chosen two very high quality curriculums in order to make our decision. So then we went on to tool two and we did the same thing. We updated those scores based on discussions during our decision-making meeting. There was a slight difference in technology tools, but Origo came out slightly ahead, giving the opportunities to communicate and collaborate using our technology. Reveal did score higher with regards to differentiation and connections. Differentiation was found to provide teachers with strategies and scaffolds for meeting the needs of all learners. Connections were more explicit within Reveal regarding college, career, and life applications. So at the end of tool 2 scoring, we did have Origo Stepping Stone scoring at a 78.5 and Reveal scoring at an 80.5. Still very close. Right. So that brings us to March 27th, when our committee came together to debrief the whole pilot process, review the tools, review our scoring, look at the surveys and all of those pieces to try to reach consensus, which we had set way back when the committee first met last June at 80% in hopefully reaching consensus to move forward with one of those as the selected resource. We did way back in October at one of our meetings as we were trying to anticipate that decision to move forward to pilot. We knew that things were going to get quite tight because of the nature of the resources that we had and how strong all of them were scoring with those tools that Meredith and Erin just spoke to. And so in October, our committee came to the decision, reached consensus at 80%, that should we not be able to make a decision at 80%, that the second criteria that we would go to are those scores that were input into tools 1 and tools 2. So if we couldn't get to the 80%, the next piece we would look at then would be the scores in tools 1 and tools 2. And we agreed upon that in October. So that still was the process that we were leaning on moving forward into this decision in March.
Can I jump in on that and just add that should we have needed to go to a third criteria, it would have been price. And we'll share that information with you as well.
So when our committee came together on March 27th, when we debriefed everything, we had our committee members vote to determine which material they would prefer to recommend moving forward. And as Valerie mentioned at the beginning, it was a dead tie, 13-13, which spoke to both resources. They were both scored very strong. Both had some drawbacks as well. With any resource, we know that we're going to encounter some things that we have to work around and adapt to. And the committee talked through all of those things, and as mentioned, we were in a dead tie. So they debriefed further. They further talked about the pros and cons of each, and they brought it to a second vote. And so some members, you can see in that second vote, tried to shift toward that consensus of 80%. And in that dialogue that we were having with the committee and the struggles we were anticipating, the committee maintained they did not want to change the agreed upon threshold of 80%. They were very tried and true to, we set that back in June. We are going to stick true to that, which also meant that they were agreeing to stick to the second criteria of, if we can't get there, we are going to look at tools 1 and tools 2. So with all of that being said, during that discussion time, we determined we were going to move forward with another vote to see where we were at. But if consensus was not reached at that point, then we would go forward with the scores from tools 1 and tools 2, which brings us to the next vote. Oh, back one slide. Valerie jumped the gun there. So the third vote, this is where we landed, still not meeting that consensus threshold that was set at 80%. So it was determined that we would go to those scores from tools 1 and tools 2 that were previously shared in the last few slides. Just as a review of that, you can see those scores again on the screen here. And I think it's important for us to note that although our vote did try to inch forward toward that consensus piece, it is important to remember where our committee members stood at the beginning and that they were evenly divided at the start of that conversation. So although some may have shifted their vote in trying to get there, some may still have preferred the other resource as well. I think the thing to keep in mind for our committee and that they should, at least I feel they should be very proud of, is that they followed their agreed upon process from the beginning. They set forth the consensus, they set forth the second criteria and the third criteria, and they really did their due diligence in reviewing both of these materials through the pilot process, through the scoring process, through their discussions. And although those conversations that night were very difficult, very challenging, there's a lot of feelings that go into that time. But I think we're all excited to move forward. We knew we had two really good quality resources on the table. And we're excited to begin now planning for the implementation phase with Reveal because it did score 92, which was ahead of Origo. Which takes us now to what comes next. Now that we have that selection or recommendation made by the committee. So before spring break, after spring break, we met with instructional council. My days are running together now. Right before spring break, I think we met with instructional council and presented the decision to them. They did vote that we could move forward with the recommendation to purchase Reveal. So we are seeking Board of Ed approval for purchase on May 2nd in a couple of weeks. But there are a lot of moving parts that still have yet to happen, even though we got to this part. Now the hard work really truly begins.
There are a lot of moving parts when you're talking about instructional materials for this many teachers.
Mhm.
You know, it is a lot. So take a moment to peruse that. That's where we're going next.
Yes. So as we know, as long as we get consent to move forward, then in May, we wouldn't move forward with this unless we have that consent. In May, we inventory our old materials. We organize those for the return process to make room for the incoming materials. We confirm the professional learning days with the publishers to ensure that we have specialists on hand to help facilitate that work because they are the expert in their resource. We connect with the non-pubs as well throughout Rapid City because we coordinate with them to purchase materials as well and alternative instruction for procurement of materials if requested as well. And then also coordinating with our warehouse staff. The end of the year is always a busy time for them as things are getting sent back and all of that. So making sure we coordinate with them and making sure that they have the time and the space to pick up those old materials and take them out, and then also begin to prepare for then sending the new materials when they arrive out into buildings as well. June, the purchase order submitted. The committee would engage in the pacing guide work to begin mapping that out for next year to ensure all of our teachers start off the implementation on a good foot and understanding of where their scope and sequence will land for math instruction. Also preparing what we're terming as unit studies that we're going to kind of sequentially implement over the course of next school year. So teachers almost forward plan for every new unit that is upcoming throughout the course of the school year. We don't always have that opportunity to forward plan, and that piece is really important to ensure we understand where it's going for our students and we're not just living day to day, so we can kind of see a bigger picture. Obviously, the new materials would hopefully arrive during that time and get those out to building as well so that they are there and ready come August. And then our committee would further develop that unit study process, lead that first session of that in conjunction with the publishers for the implementation training to launch next school year. So there's a lot to still be done over the summer as we prepare for next year. And the next slide. So part of this, going way back to June of last year as well, one of the things that our committee voiced right off the bat was, yes, it's nice to have a new instructional resource that has all of these things that we looked at in Tools 1 and Tools 2. But we know that there's this whole additional piece of supporting our teachers in building their craft and understanding of math instruction. And so we have also moved forward in conjunction with the adoption of the new resource with offering an elementary mathematics summer institute. So we are going to be holding that in June of this year from June 20th through 22nd. It is open for all teachers to register. We have a K2 session and a 3-5 session every day. And so right now, each of those days For K2, we have about 35 to 40 teachers registered. And then at 3 through 5, we have between 50 and 55 teachers registered to attend. They are electing to attend that on their own time. They'll receive contact hours for that time to engage in that and additional pay for that time as well. Trying to sweeten that pot a little bit to encourage them to join us. But we are having the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics facilitate the first 2 days around productive struggle and facilitating discourse in a mathematics classroom to really build the pedagogical practices related to mathematics in our elementary teachers so that they are better supported to use the new resource in a way that will help students develop their math understandings. The third day of the Institute, we are actually partnering with the publisher to then offer those two pieces, productive struggle and facilitating discourse, through the lens of the new resource. How do we see that coming to life in this resource? How can we further align that to best practices in the classroom to really support student learning and growth? Because that's where the true impact is going to come of having a new resource paired with good quality instruction to really make the difference in student learning. So we're really excited to be offering that this summer as well.
And with that, we'll stand for questions. I kind of would like to be the one to field them. Because I think if I can't answer it, I can direct it to the person that can best answer it. And so we open the floor to questions. Bishop Carr.
I don't necessarily have a question. I just want to thank the work that everyone did on the team. I was able to visit a few classes at the various schools and very impressed by both curriculum actually. And so just thank you for your time, your caring, and I appreciate that. I am also interested to see how people personally felt about the tie, because, you know, if you're advocating for one curriculum and you see the vote not going your way, and then you go to the tiebreaker, I need you all's strength for my diet. I wish I had enough willpower to stick to the plan, but I never do. So it would be, I'm just curious, just the insight in how that dynamic went with it being tied and then it reversing when you went to the tiebreaker.
You know, what's interesting is you're aware that we are piloting assessments at 3 of our elementary schools. Just pulled the group together for the 3rd time, I think, last night. Tie. Tie with 3 principals, different principals. Tie with, I mean, it's the nature of the beast. And again, you do grow ownership with one. So there is always going to be a win-loss feel, but again, we come back to, we picked the absolute best materials and they were in a dead tie. We are doing the best by students. So thank you. And I would like to share too that I had Farah attend the regional curriculum directors for West River curriculum directors meeting in my place yesterday, because I was unable to attend because of a conflict, and 2 districts asked for all the resources related to the process we use in Rapid City area schools for curriculum adoptions, because it's spot on and it doesn't take 3 years.
Nice.
So.
Mr. Berkeley?
Yeah, I had similar comments to Bishop Carr, actually. Thank you. I know how hard it is. I've gone through it, and switching around all of those piloting and not piloting. I know how tough that is to pull your kids out of it and throw them into something new. Kind of similarly, just I don't want to call anyone out, but like if there were any holdouts, I was a holdout. I'm just making sure that we are.
You remember?
Yeah, making sure that it was not tied when I was there. It was 10-1. But I held out. Just following up with them, just once again, knowing what that's like, just following up and knowing that these are both great. I also got the opportunity to see them and I was impressed with either one. There was one I liked more, but either way, these both seem good. And part of that was saw awesome teachers doing it. So, and then the other question was, I'm probably the only one interested in this, but the Summer Institute, I don't know if we pay by person, but if we don't, I would love to get information on that when it comes around.
I worked with NCTM and as did my department to arrange their days. They have a capacity of 50 in a room.
Okay.
Just to break it down, I was doing the math over here. We have 270 teachers to train on these new materials. Across the district, we have 270 rooms to put new materials in. There's just a lot. And so we couldn't offer that opportunity to everyone, but I can guarantee I can let you sit in on them. Yep.
Awesome, that'd be great.
Yep. As a board member, you're welcome to do that. If anyone else wants to do the same, it's great training. NCTM is very respected. We're happy to have them here.
Good deal. Any other questions? Good job. Yes, thank you very much. All right, next.
Thank you, President Thomas, and thank you to the math curriculum team. We are now going to introduce Brown and Brown. Oh, yes, I will. Stop share so Brown and Brown can join us. Mason and Sean, they're here again. They come 2 or 3 times a year, I think, to educate us about insurance. This is important because we are self-insured. And it is absolutely vital that our board understands about our insurance because the district pays the largest share of the insurance. So I know that we talked earlier about the board passing policy and procedure, hiring the superintendent, but budget is another huge job of the board. And so the fact that the board, they will share what the district's share of insurance is as well. So they're giving a update on where we stand now and possible where we need to be going into the next plan year.
Thank you, Nicole. Madam Board President, board members, good evening. It's good to be here. You did an excellent summary, Nicole, so I think we can probably go home now. Now, this is a very important item. Benefits for the staff and teachers. It can be a distinguishing piece from a retention recruitment position. And what we've been doing as consultants working on the district's behalf is to look at ways over the years for cost management that you can continue to provide great benefits to the staff that deserves those benefits. So what we're here to do today is really kind of take you through a little bit of a path. We've been working with the finance team and the HR team and the insurance committee over the last several months. And we just had a meeting with the insurance committee and they've been prepped and they've seen this presentation. So part of the process is really want to kind of share where we're seeing the vision for the costs that come the new renewal time in September and kind of share with you some ideas that we've got along that pathway. Okay, so the first slide we have, we just want to recapture some of the costs that are associated with the medical plan. And really, this is just the claim costs. The claim costs for the school district really make up 90% of the medical plan budget. And we're running at about 103% right now of the expected cost. Last year at this time, and that's that circle there. Last year at this time, we were running about 115%, but as the year went on, the cost to the expected was about 8% over. So there was some improvement. So we're seeing a little bit better spot this year at this point in time. What's interesting about this is the enrollment of the district in terms of those participants on the plan has decreased. Normally you'd think that you'd see a spike in claims, but you know, the claim per cost per employee actually was below trend. You can see it's about 3% in the lower right-hand corner box there. And I'm gonna see if I can get this. Can you move this off of there? Thanks, Sean. Medical trend right now is around 9 to 11%, depending on, you know, the source. So with the cost per employee trending around that 3% number, that's certainly favorable. Even in light of the fact that enrollment has kind of come down, you have this lag impact. I don't want to get too boring and technical with it, but normally you'd think you'd see a spike, but the claim level has kind of been more favorable than what we would expected. In terms of just high level place of service, you're not surprisingly, your facility charges like your in and outpatient facility charges are gonna have the majority of cost. Last year that trended around 39% of total plan costs. Right now it's trending at about 35. So there's certainly less catastrophic claims that have come through the system. And your professional services and pharmacy services are in line with where we would expect them to be. In terms of large case, we kind of track 50% of your specific stop loss. So the district is really responsible for all claims up to $175,000, which seems like is a big number. And then Wellmark with their stop loss insurance is responsible for all claims over 175,000. And we're seeing year to date through February, about halfway through the plan year, with the data that we have, about 3 claims that are over the specific stop loss. And with our analytics tools, we would expect about 9.9 claims. Right, you're right. Why wouldn't that be 10? Well, it's just actuarial science. So we get to the decimal point. So with this, we definitely have some favorability going through the year. One other report that we like to pull and share with the board is just how efficient your plan is running. And we like to look at how efficient Wellmark as your administrator is running your plan from a network perspective, and how the plan is running also through a plan design perspective. The far left-hand corner of that chart that's highlighted in blue, that's kind of what Wellmark is responsible for. We're looking at discounts and their coordination of benefits and any stop loss responsibility that they have. You can kind of see that, $18 million was presented to Wellmark. And at the end of the day, when you apply about a 45% discount rate, some coordination with other carriers, and stop loss, the actual, savings that Wellmark has managed is roughly $8.1 million. So when we do the simple math, you're really starting out with net eligible charges that goes through your plan design of about 9.7. So, we collectively then, if you're on the plan, you're paying deductibles, you're paying co-pays, co-insurance. That's your cost when you use medical doctors, facilities, pharmacy. We're also paying contributions, but in aggregate, so far year to date, the staff has picked up about $1.3 million of costs through the plan design, which leaves that $8.2 million, which I referenced before on the first page, which the district has paid year to date. So really what we're seeing at the very lower corner here, I don't know if it's showing up there, this 45%, we're really just showing or explaining that 45 cents on every dollar is really being paid by the district per dollar is just being presented to Wellmark. So that's a pretty good number, and one that we like to see there. The next slide here is talking about how the cost is distributed between the district and staff. And you can kind of see here, the district is picking about 62% of the total cost. And staff is about 38%. And how we calculate that is we just look at that previous page. We're looking at what the membership out of pocket was and what the human resources team has taken from employee paychecks for their contributions. And that was about a $2.7 million figure. So we can see the blend there. And when we look at Milliman, for example, they're one of the few kind of benchmarks out there. You can see that the district does compare very favorably to the Milliman benchmark. And actually, Sean, if you can help me with my eyes here, last year, the district ended up at, what is that?
64% employer, 36% employee.
Yeah.
So right now you're at a 62-38. That is a moving target. So as individuals meet their deductible, then the plan will cost more once they hit or take on more costs. So you've historically been around that 65-35 range, which again has been better than benchmarks.
And you might as well continue, Sean. You can take care of the dental.
Yeah, dental plan has been charted really well. Just the one page we're going to show, it really highlights where the claims are coming from. There's nothing that sticks out as a point of concern or a point that we need to look more into. The majority of your claims, 57% is from diagnostic and preventative, where we want to see those claims at, and then your regular and special restorative. The plan is running fairly well. At the very bottom there in the gray box, you'll see that on a per employee per month basis, it's actually only up 0.5% over this time frame last year.
Thank you. You know, one thing I forgot to mention, because I'm gonna make an excuse, it's the glare of the screen. I can't see this thing very well. But one of the other things that we track is your IBNR, or incurred but not yet reported claims. And what that really means is it's $1.3 million or 28 days of lag. So what that essentially means is that the district needs to have that amount in an account in case the plan would ever terminate. But you know, Coy and his auditors and his accounting folks, they need that number from a budgetary purpose as well, just to make sure you got an appropriate fund balance and things like that. So we're sitting in a good spot with that particular number. What this page references is where we are year to date from a budget perspective and where we are projecting the budget through year end compared to the prior plan year. So as we've kind of shared with this before, oops, I'm sorry, the top line here represents kind of the plan contribution. So you can see, I believe it's $10.1 million of planned contributions year to date. That's from the contributions from, you know, the staff out of payroll deductions and what the district contributes from a plan cost for single plus one and family contracts. So we track all that. We track the monthly enrollment and it rolls up to those numbers. From there, so we got our funded amount. And then from there, we're taking out expenses. So the expense portion is your fixed costs. So that's what you're essentially paying Wellmark for administration, your network, and a portion of that, $1 million paid year to date, is also for the stop loss insurance for the risk that Wellmark covers for over that $175,000. And then, you know, certainly the majority of the cost is the claim number that we've been talking about, which is the $8,977,000. You'll see a little subtraction there for some favorability on RX rebates. You get credits for that. So you can see the total expenses are less than the budget for contributions and what the district has contributed year to date. So we're running about 91% of the budget, which is favorable, or about $917,000 favorable to budget. So you might look at that number and say, gee, that's great. But part of the thing that we have to also keep in mind is we've got 25% of your staff are on the 9-month plan. So they've kind of pre-funded along with the district their contributions over 9 months rather than spread it over 12. Okay. So there's a lumping up earlier in the year of those premiums. We still have favorable experience, but just want to note that because what happens is when we project out claims and what we anticipate in rebates and not having all those extra contributions coming in, we're actually seeing the budget around 1% over. So we're seeing it being unfavorable by year end by $253,000. You can see the prior year was unfavorable by $365,000. Okay. When we look at the district costs just on a cost per employee basis, we're seeing when we do the calculation, that's all simply just taking what are the expenses less the contributions, and we get a cost per staff person, and that's about $840. It's that circled green line or green circle, or about 2.2% lower than it was last year. That's year to date. But then when we kind of project forward what we're anticipating for the rest of the 6 months, we're seeing it about a $53 increase per staff member, or about a 6% increase over the prior year. Now, again, as I mentioned, medical trend is that 8 to 9% range. And this is certainly favorable to that. Okay. Any questions on that part? Well, yeah. Okay, so shifting gears, we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, the process that we're going through to help the insurance committee, finance and HR look at what we looking for cost changes next year and some recommendations. But we want to take you back and just kind of let you know what we're looking at in terms of the overall landscape of benefits and kind of take you back in history, just so you know how we got where we're at today from a design standpoint.
Yeah, and so this screen really just quickly identifies who your carrier partners are today. Wellmark is your medical and prescription stop loss, Delta Dental, WageWorks is your flexible spending. And you'll see to the right of that is when each plan is set for renewal. Flexible spending is on a calendar year basis. One thing that's a little different is the standard. So the standard currently provides your base life and AD&D insurance, your disabilities, and then your voluntary short-term disability, the accident, critical illness. 3 years ago, when we put the standard in place, we put the standard in place for base life only. This is the life insurance that the district provides to the employees. That was put in at 9/1. A month later, the district decided to add in effective 1/1 of 2021, the voluntary benefits. So the voluntary life, the voluntary STD, accident, critical illness. Although those also had a 3-year rate guarantee, in order to sync them up eventually with your medical and your dental plans, those contracts then end this September. So you'll see those, that typically employees will enroll in those benefits on a 1/1 basis. This year, those will be on a 9/1 basis. So we'll be consolidating all the benefits at the same time. And then of course, the health advocate down there, that's the employee assistance program that's provided through the standard. Kind of continuing with that theme, just, real quick to kind of level set where we were before we kind of give you the quick initial view of what we have for the upcoming year. Last year at this time, when we were presenting, we had the initial Wellmark renewal and it was about 13.2% increase. That was with no plan design changes. That was their initial out the gate. You can see some where their rates were at. Their fixed costs were 19%. Their claim factor is almost 13%. Through that time, then through the next few months, up until we presented again in June for the final recommendation, we did make some plan design changes, which brought that renewal down to 8.6%. I'll come back to that screen here in a second. And those changes are here up on the screen to the medical plan. We lowered deductibles to employees and families. We did raise the out-of-pocket maximums. And then we made some slight adjustments to the RX copays to make it a little easier to use. And all this is from last year. We want to remind the board, when we look at plan design, we don't just look at them on what's going to save money from a claim rate, from what the carrier is going to give us. We want to make sure they're meaningful and they're going to provide opportunity to all members of this covered under the plan. And so as a reminder, at this time last year, these will be updated once we have updated data over the next few months. Last year, we knew that 64% of those covered members resulted in less than 8% of the total claims. Conversely, 10% of covered members had over 72%. It's the principle of the 80-20, 20% of your population, 80% of your claims. That's to the plan cost. We also wanted to break that down to an individual level, and that's that bottom bullet point. And from 2019 through 2021, 82% of members covered under the RCS medical plan incurred less than $2,000 in cost from the medical plan, 92% less than $4,000. So it's that kind of data that lets us look at the plan design and what's going to make sense. We never want to target an out-of-pocket or target a deductible. We want to make sure the plan is fair and equitable to all members, utilizers and non-utilizers. And as a result, that led to that decrease down to the 8.6%.
Yeah, so the change in plan design was counterintuitive because it allowed us to reduce the deductible, which is just quite the opposite of what the marketplace is doing. And it provides better value in a lens perspective for, retention and recruitment of staff.
Just going back real quick, dental last year for this current plan year, but for renewal was a 5% increase. There was no change to your flexible spending other than increasing the allowable withholdings by the IRS maximums. Base life and AD&D, like I mentioned, no changes there. They were finalized in the end of their 3-year rate lock. And then all the other voluntary products I mentioned, there were no changes to them. They were under rate lock, and those will be coming up for renewal here on 9/1. So this leads us to where we're at right now, initial. So we do have an initial peek at what your current carrier Wellmark is providing for their initial renewal, as well as the market. We did go out and market your medical plan to United Healthcare, Wellmark, and Health Partners, along with the prescription drug plan. And then the stop loss, that reinsurance, we went out to the full market. Initially, so these numbers are just coming in. You'll see it tops there. We're looking at Wellmark, Health Partners, and United Healthcare. So last year at this point, like we just said, we came in and Wellmark had an initial increase of 13.2%. You can see circled in the green here. Initially, Wellmark is at a 7.7% increase. If I go from the left, initially their fixed cost, so this is administration and stop loss, is a 24.2% increase. The bulk of that 16%. Now we're going to kind of put that in perspective as well in total cost. Wellmark's expecting your claim rates, your expected claims for 2023, 2024 at a 6.8% increase. So you merge those two together and that gets their 7.7. The initials from the marketplace, Health Partners, is at 10.4%, and and United Healthcare at 9.1. Now, these are just very initial. So these are our starting points. Just like last year, we'll go back to the market, we'll go back to Wellmark. We'll go back once we get another data dump to look at what makes sense. Do we need a plan design change, which we probably don't need one this year, but look at where things can be triggered to reduce cost and make the plan, again, more efficient. And we'll do that as well with the market.
Thanks, Sean. So really what I want to point out on this page is just the bar chart section, because Sean kind of really hit on the cost per unit, which really is reflective on the left-hand side of the chart. But as I think I mentioned earlier, district costs are kind of broken out between your fixed, which is a component of your administration, and your stop loss. So, you know, if we look at the bar chart there, the stop loss is in gray, and that represents around 7.5% of your total costs. You can see that the red line there represents your admin about 3.8, but certainly a majority of that, about 89% of it is all claims. So what we're doing from a plan design perspective, a contribution perspective, helps what type of risk pool we have at the end of the day, because claims ultimately are the thing that drive costs, certainly in a medical plan. And just to call out on the very bottom, we recommend and have been recommending that the district fund around 101% of expected cost. Because of, you know, it's pretty typical, there is a maximum liability threshold that's built into contracts. And, you know, based on that, if the plague came through and, you know, everyone had an illness up to the $175,000 stop loss level, there's a cap that, you know, the district isn't having to pay out, you know, millions and millions and millions of dollars. But that cap is above and beyond where the budget is. It's at an additional $3.8 million. But, you know, our fund balance is very healthy. But we just want to call that out just to show you where that reference point is. And then here, just by way of reference, you know, if we look at the far lower left-hand corner, you can see the total budget current year is that $17 million, 18.6 is the 7.7% increase. You could see the total increase based on the census is about $1.3 million. And then we divide it out between the staff and the district. The district's around $965,000 and the staff pickups about $346,000. And we're simply showing what those new contribution rates are per month in the charts above. And, you know, for example, the single rate would go up about $8.30 and the family would go up about 11. Just by kind of looking at that from the single tier and the family tier as you scroll down there. And then this last page is just the overall budget. So this includes the medical, the dental, and the base life. Projecting about a 3% increase on the dental, 7.7 on the medical. So the total district increase, when you figure everything kind of pulled together here, it's about just a little over $1 million.
And again, so this is the initial blush at what it's going to look like. Real quick on the dental, that's a placeholder. We don't have the renewal from Delta Dental yet. Again, the plan is running well. Like we mentioned, you're up about 0.5% on a claims per employee per month basis. Dental is pretty secular, so we'll see how the next few months play out. But again, that 3% on dental is a placeholder. But again, this is where we say the starting point is. Very likely these will change, and it's our job is hopefully to change it for the betterment.
Yeah, maybe can we mention one thing about the survey?
Yeah, as I said, I don't know if there's another slide.
Yeah.
So in talking with the insurance committee and working with them from last time we met and then today as well, there's a couple of things that we're going to be doing to help guide not only where financially and analytically we're looking at the plan designs, but also what your staff wants to see. So the first thing we'll be doing the next couple of weeks is sending out an employee satisfaction survey. And it's really it's an anonymous survey. It'll go out electronically and it's going to ask pretty much most of the questions about the medical plan. What components do they like? Do they like the carrier? Again, just getting their gauge on what's driving them to be enrolled or not enrolled, because we do ask those individuals that indicate that they are not enrolled in the plan, whether they're on a spouse's plan or just they don't have coverage. Why? What is it missing? Not only from a cost standpoint, but from a benefit plan design standpoint. Another thing that we were asked by the committee, insurance committee, was to look at vision insurance. So we did, since the last time we met, we went out to market and we received several voluntary vision proposals that we went over with the committee today.
So voluntary just means that the staff would pay that on.
So just
So
like,
it's a
your-
benefit enhancement that the district offers to plan, just like your other voluntary benefits.
and so those were pretty well received. What we're going to do is add into the survey, just a real quick blurb education about what the vision insurance would look like, noting that it would be voluntary, giving them the carriers that might be in consideration, along with links out to provider searches for those carriers. So that, again, we can gauge from the staff, do they want this benefit? If they do they have a preference on carriers when they go out? Again, to give a little bit more weight to if this plan is added, it's something that your staff wants. That'll be going out in a couple of weeks.
Mr. Sassy.
Madam President, I would defer to any questions or conversation the board has before I.
Mrs.
Comment.
Clapham.
Really quick, what would be checked about the fact that you could reassess to change plans, it's unlikely, but what's the deadline? Like, at what point would there be no going back and next year it has to be this, just kind of out of curiosity?
Well, we're looking in mid-June to have information back to the board. So by then we'll have that all figured out.
Thank you very much.
I don't see any other hands.
Okay. So, thank you, gentlemen. Great presentation. Appreciate all the information. I think I am probably the one unique person sitting in this room that feels your pain of the glaze over that happens sometimes with all the
That
numbers.
didn't happen, did it?
I didn't see, I
no.
saw no glaze.
I know how it goes, guys. Okay, so I think great information. I think a few things from my perspective that really could use reiterated and maybe broken down a little further, because this is really, really important. I mean, this district spends $16 million a year providing benefits to its employees, and this is a big, big deal. It's really complex as well. Like Superintendent Swigert said, because of the nature of our insurance fund, we're managing it from multiple different angles. We're managing it from the plan perspective, from the cash management perspective. And so it's really complex. So I think, first of all, I always like to help to clarify the role of Brown & Brown, because I think that can get misunderstood. So Brown & Brown is not Wellmark. Brown & Brown is a third-party administrative agency that the district hires to help us execute and manage the plan. And part of their role is to do exactly what they did today, which is bring back the numbers. And then we will continue to talk about how we can make effective changes to the plan that would help to bring that number down. But I think in the past, sometimes there was the tendency to go, well, you guys are bringing an increase. No, they're helping manage it and hopefully cut down on that increase. So that's their role in this whole thing. I think one of the things we talked about in the past is that's really important is in regard to that Milliman benchmark that we talked about and the highlights that they gave in terms of district costs versus employee costs. And so you've heard that throughout the negotiations process as well, that's really the district's aim, is to keep a unified approach to how we deliver those benefits to our employees, and try to do our best to maintain that benchmark and stay at a point to where as premiums increase, which they inevitably will, that we are maintaining that benchmark. As we have also talked about in the past, I think it's important to point out that as you look at that increased breakdown, you see the fixed costs going up at a much more rapid rate, 24.2% versus the claim cost estimate, which was 6.8%. And I think, again, it can be easy to go, whoa, we're getting gouged in administrative fees. Well, when you look at the breakdown of it, you know, that entire 24.2% increase costs $215,000, whereas the estimated increase for claims of 6.8% costs $1.1 million. So back to the idea that this plan is still driven by claims. 90% of the costs are claims, and not that it isn't important to look at the management fees and try to do what we can to curb those and offset those, but where the real impact happens financially is from the claims amount. as they talked about, obviously the work of the district and Brown and Brown at this point is to go to work and try to figure out how we can cut that cost. And I think the gentlemen have done a great job over the time I've worked with them in bringing back exactly like they said, changes to the plan that are impacting employees in a good way. And like what they highlighted in those last couple of slides of the plan changes that were made last year impacted very few employees in a very small way. And that's always the idea is how do we do the greatest good with these changes to the plan. And then lastly, I think it's important to mention as Sean talked a little bit about the survey. Nicole said it earlier. We believe that our benefit plan is a huge factor in recruitment and retainment. We believe it's rich. We believe it's better than a lot of our competitors, right? The challenge can be, and you all know this after sitting through several weeks of negotiations, how do we help our employees understand the benefit that it really is? Because it's hard. I mean, there's a lot going on inside those plans. They're complex. How do we help them understand the benefit that it is? And so along with the survey, some of the other things we've talked about is just that. How do we continue to educate our employees? How do we help them understand what all this stuff means? And how do we help them understand that, as we hear often, well, I could go here and make X, and we come back with the idea that, yes, but you need to look at the whole compensation package, which includes your benefits. How do we help them do that? And what does that mean as we are working through recruitment and retainment? How do we give them tools to understand that situation better? So we talked about that and have some ideas, and I think that's important too. So great job, gentlemen. Really appreciate it.
I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, I don't know if the district does compensation statements, but that might be something to consider too.
Absolutely.
Because it brings in unseen paycheck value, overall compensation is pay and benefits, and marrying them together is the piece that sometimes people miss. So.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Very well
We'll
done.
see you in June. I am going to give the shortest superintendent report on record, okay? So I am, you can time me. HR is working on negotiations. TLI is working on the SBAC testing. We were chosen as a host site, so we are hosting some visits from state about the SBAC testing. Softball, tennis, golf, and track are in full swing, so get out and support that. Evening of Excellence was amazing last night. They expanded and included Rapid City High School and special ed. I thought that was incredible. Tomorrow night is the PAC meeting. Budget review, it's here. Indian tacos at 4 beforehand. So you might want to come out and enjoy Indian tacos with us. I also have something Thursday night, and Friday night I'm going to Central High School for Frozen. So thank you very much. That's my report for tonight, Madam President.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Madam President.
Yes, you may.
I was in Sioux Falls, so thank you very much for asking me that. I heard really great things about prom, and I do absolutely love prom, and I think that it's a fantastic opportunity for our students. When I came into town, I drove by the monument to drop off the school car, and they way overbooked that. They had something in the theater, something in LaCroix Hall, something in Rushmore Hall, prom going on. There was no parking anywhere. All I could say was at least there wasn't 4 inches of snow, because I have walked into prom in high heels and a dress before here with lots and lots of snow. So at least that was good. But I got great reports from the principals. I think it was a great night.
Thank you.
I take it that was your other. Any others from?
So I figured I'd add it.
Yeah. All right, other by any board members. Mrs. Clapham.
Okay, I'm gonna be like, sorry, everybody's tired, so I'm gonna try to speak fast, but understandably. Shout out to South Canyon Elementary. One, thanks to Bishop Carr for joining me to see the science presentations. Wow, second graders are impressive. They had an incredible variety of topics. And I was super impressed at how eager they were to present to complete strangers. For an 8-year-old to be able to describe how much force is dissipated by a pulley was just blew my mind. So super impressive at South Canyon. Central High School, thanks for inviting to chaperone post prom. Thank you to Mr. Clone, Mr. Berkland for participating as well. The volunteers and staff did an incredible job creating a safe and fun environment for the students. And every single student was absolutely polite and gracious. I was so impressed with how well behaved and just how kind and gracious every kid there was. And finally, on Evening of Excellence, for those who are out there in YouTube land or watching this later, when we honor our highest academically achieving seniors, which did include 2 of our 3 board representatives, we should acknowledge that in recent history, we've had a lot of comments about educators, what's happening in our schools, what we believe happening in our schools. And many of these statements aren't based on evidence or facts. And Evening of Excellence provides an opportunity for each student to honor a teacher. And the words the students spoke vividly illustrate what's really happening in our schools every day. And I wanted to share some of those. Student said, "She gave me skills I can use through life. She looked past my IEP and saw me for me. She's one of the most caring people I've ever known. She instilled a love of learning in my life. She created an environment where students feel safe and want to learn. He pushed me past my limits. He cared about me as a person, not just as a student or an athlete. She prepares students for life outside the classroom. The world needs more light, and you are one of the people who's creating the light." And I say that to invite our community to involve yourself in our school communities. There are amazing things happening there and amazing people. I get to see and experience that just about every day. And community, our students and staff deserve and need that support. Evening of Excellence reminded me to say to our staff from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for what you give to our students every single day.
Well said. Thank you. Any others? All right. We are going to go into executive session and I need a motion in a
So
second.
moved.
Tim and Clay for SDCL 1-25-2.1 and SDCL 1-25-2.4. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? There will be no further action afterwards. Thank you.